Guys, it's Jo from True North Tiny Homes here. Welcome to UpSizeDown again, where Dan talks and you listen. Actually, he's very informative, so I'm very thankful for that, and I'm sure you guys are too. But today on this episode, we're going to be talking about how to use tiny homes as investments. So we have a lot of information for you guys, and I hope you enjoy.
Do you remember when we had our first tiny home, the Millennial, as a short-term rental?
Yeah, that was really fun. It was really fun to do, really exciting to have people interested in our tiny house. And
we were able to collect a lot of data from them.
Yeah, and we didn't have any trouble booking that because I think there was a lot of people just interested in tiny homes, period. And then also a lot of people interested in downsizing their life, and so they wanted to see if they could actually do it.
Yeah, we also had people that wanted to just get away from the city. I think we had one lady, she stayed for 9 days to write a book.
Yeah.
Just get away from it all.
Yeah, because a lot of times you don't think that you have a yard that is anything special, but for somebody who lives in the city maybe, or who doesn't have the opportunity to get away on their own, but wants that freedom and of being out in the country, then that's really something special for them.
Yeah, great way to use a rural property as a single rental place for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, so that was a really good experience.
We had that booked, I believe, 90% of the time, year round. It was kind of crazy. And again, we weren't close to any, not close to any amenities. I mean, we had one couple stay there that didn't even have a license, and they Ubered for 10 minutes to get anywhere every day.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And they Ubered to a bus stop so they could then get to a city. But
yeah. No, that was really cool. So.
What are some other ways that you think people could use tiny homes that aren't for themselves to live in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people now, because of the housing market, that cannot afford to get their foot in the housing market. So they're either looking at staying and living longer with their parents, or maybe, yeah, so they're looking for a place to have their own independence, but maybe be able to save up for a house eventually, or even just combine incomes as a whole extended family. There's also a granny suite, which
especially after this COVID time, with how no one could even go see their parents or grandparents in a long-term care facility.
Yeah, this still, you're able to keep your independence again, but yeah, be close enough if you need help, and as you age, you can be close enough to your family.
And then the other thing COVID's done for us is so many people are working from home now.
Yeah. An office is a great way to have, it's separating your living space, and so you're able to be close to work. It's probably cheaper than renting a lot of office space. And there's multiple uses. We've had yoga studios, we've had design studios in there. Yeah, so
just, if you develop it as a whole tiny home with a bedroom and everything, then you also have a guest house for when family comes to visit.
And you could also rent it out as a short-term rental on the weekends.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm-hmm. There's two different categories that tiny home rentals will break into. One is in an urban setting, and the other is in one of our tiny home villages. And Dan's going to talk more about that.
As Joanna said, one of the categories that tiny home rentals will break into is the urban setting. And the reason we say this rather than in the rural setting is because so many city centers are changing their bylaws and adding more ways for us to be able to put a tiny home in almost every backyard. And it's never called a tiny home, by the way. It's garden suites and accessory dwelling units and accessory apartment or laneway house or whatever. And so many cities are changing those rules, as I said, and so it's becoming increasingly easier to do this. Why are they doing this though? It's because of the housing market. I mean, look, in the last year alone, things have gone up over 30%. That's crazy. People can no longer afford to get into the housing market, and so more people are turning to rentals. And there's not enough rental stock for these people. So let's help create some of it. And let's talk a little bit about how that breaks down. So there's two different ways to do rentals, and that is as a short-term rental and as a long-term rental. Now, the municipalities really want you to do the long-term rentals because that's what's increasing the housing stock. The short-term rentals is just increasing vacation spots. So that's not what the municipalities are after. They really need to alleviate the housing crisis a bit. And to do that, they need to do long-term rentals. So you could put a tiny home in your own backyard. You're living in the main house, you have a rental unit in the back. And you could also do short-term rentals while you're waiting for a long-term renter. That's a great idea, and that's very arguable with the cities. Or you could do it on a property that you have already duplexed, and it's too hard to create a triplex out of that property. The easiest way to add a third dwelling unit is just to literally add a third dwelling unit in the backyard. And the great thing about doing it as a tiny home is the day after we have the permit, we can install the tiny home because we could have pre-built it. Now, an interesting thing to note here is that the way Hamilton has just redone their zoning bylaws and the way that their wording came out is that adding that tiny home in the backyard to an already duplexed property doesn't make it a triplex. It's now a duplex with an accessory apartment. What this means for you is that any property that is zoned a duplex can actually have 3 rental units. Now, the final wording isn't quite out, so we don't know exactly how that's gonna run, but this is the intent, and this is a great thing for everybody because it means we can put more rental units on properties that we didn't think we could. So how much could you make in an urban setting like this? What could you rent a tiny home for in the backyard? Well, look at it this way. It's different in every setting. It's different in every city. So it depends on where you are. But to give Hamilton as an example, there are people that I know that have recently rented coach houses that are in backyards, and they're older, and they're paying over $2,000 a month for something like that, small, just like a tiny home. So you could easily ask for at least that because we have something that has lots of windows, lots of natural light, and it's new construction, so that always goes better. To put this in another perspective, however, whatever you can get in a basement apartment, to create a space that's half the size, but is above ground and in the backyard, so they have lawn and they have above grade windows, you can probably get the same rate. Now, the other way, or the other category that tiny home rentals breaks into would be putting one at one of our tiny home villages. Now, you can buy a unit much like this one, or a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, or add our plus or max additions onto it, and you can get a 3-bedroom, 2-bed house that's less than 900 square feet for under $400,000. Where can you do that anywhere else in Ontario? You can't. Now, again, you can break it into short-term rentals and long-term rentals. But this is where short-term rentals makes a lot more sense because we can get a higher ROI for you. You don't have to worry about anything. Buy the unit from us, put it in one of our parks, pay all of the bills that you have for putting something in there, but then you're gonna collect all kinds of income and we're gonna manage that entire process for you through one of our affiliates. Maybe you're not even looking at this as an investment, but you want a cottage and you want to put that at one of our tiny home villages. Perfect, you can do that, but are you going to be there all the time? No, so why not allow us to rent it out for you while you're not there? Again, we're going to manage the entire process for you through one of our affiliates. We'll rent it out, we'll clean it after everybody, and we'll clean it before you even come, because you're going to be able to use it as your cottage whenever you want, as long as you've pre-booked that even for yourself. We're going to rent it out for you between $750 and $2,000 per week, depending on whether it's a bachelor unit or a 2-bedroom plus one of our plus or max additions on it, and whether it's an interior lot or it's on a creek or a ravine or some sort of natural setting like that is obviously going to increase the rate that we can rent it out for. However, we're going to take a 25% management fee and you get to pocket the rest. And that's going to allow you to purchase your cottage well before saving up for everything, because you're going to be able to offset a lot of those costs by allowing us to rent it out for you. So if you can get to the same size as what your basement apartment is, then you should be able to ask for more. Not to mention, there is kind of a coolness factor that goes into this.
Hey guys, thanks again for joining us here on UpSizeDown. We hope that you really enjoyed this episode about tiny home investments.
Remember, I'm Jo Ott.
And I'm Joanna.
And this is UpSizeDown, where we turn housing on its head.
Hey guys, thanks again for joining us here on UpSizeDown.